Senator Amy Klobuchar is introducing legislation that tries to combat human trafficking. Alongside Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, Klobuchar introduced two bills into the Senate. The National Human Trafficking Database Act would establish a database at the Department of Justice for human trafficking information and ramp up data reporting by local law enforcement. Meanwhile, the Save Girls Act would commit more federal resources to combating human trafficking at the local level.
National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received 100,000 reports on its cyber tip line every single day. It's not just about the numbers, though. It's about kids, their classmates, our neighbors, people in our communities.
The State Department estimates more than 15,000 people are trafficked into the U.S. each year.